Hello and welcome to 101 Code. My name is Moaz Nashawi. If you like our videos, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and turn on the notifications so you can see all the new videos. In this video, we're gonna talk about variables in Java. Why do we need them? How to use them? What is the sole purpose of variables in your code? So, without any further ado, let's start it. What is variables? Variables are used to store information to be referenced and manipulated in computer program. It provides a way of labeling data with a descriptive name. So as a simple description for that, let's think of the variable as a container. This container has a unique name in your code. This container can hold certain information to be used throughout your program. So the sole purpose of the variables is to label and store data in the memory. So let's put this in action. Now let's see how we can define a variable. In order to define a variable so you can use it inside your code, you first need to set the variable type. And variable types, there's a long list of variable types. We're gonna describe it in the next chapter of this video. So for now, let's use the string variable type. So now if I want to define a variable, I'm saying here I want a string variable. After that, I need to give my variable a name. Let's put a screen size, for example. You can here name your variable wherever you want. But as a good naming convention, your variable name should have a descriptive name. So when you want to use it or when you check your code in the future, you can understand what it holds by its name, by its label. So now we have the variable type, the variable name, after that equal. Now everything come after the equal sign is the variable data or the variable information. Remember we said it's like a container which holds information. So now the information come after the equal sign. So let's start by open a double quote, and let's say screen size is 24 inch. It's 24, let's put 24. And in Java, when you want to end a line of code, you always have to use semicolon. If you don't use a semicolon, you will get a compilation error. Let's see now how we can use this defined variable in our program. So let's see now how we can use this defined variable in our program. We have here the main method. We're not gonna talk about methods now. In next video, I will describe about it. So for now, we have this method which is a starting point of our project. Once we run our project, this method will be executed. So this line of code here, I tell the compiler that I want to print message for on the user terminal, speaking this message speaking first about the specification of John's computer. So Jones has a computer and it has an NVIDIA GPU, and the screen size of John's computer is actually 24 inch. But as you can see, I didn't put 24 inch here. I used the variable which I defined here. So instead of writing it manually here as a 24, I used the container, which is the variable here. How this benefits me, because in this case scenario, I have two people which has computers, John and Sarah. So now, if I want to speak about John's computer, they both have the same screen size. So instead of manually put here 24 inch, and in the second message also Sarah's computer has an AMD GPU and screen size of 24, instead of double input this value here, which is for sure not good in your program, and it makes a lot of wasting time and wasting resources. Instead of that, I just reference to the variable name. So now if we get back, I just put the screen size here, which is the variable here. This, as I can say, is avoid the boilerplate code, avoid double input first. Then maybe in the future you want to change the screen size. Maybe in the future they have a 26-inch computer size. So you're not gonna need to go inside your code and change all the places if you didn't use actually the variable. You're just gonna need to change it in one place, which is here. So now, if we run our program, you can see the message here. John's computer has an NVIDIA GPU and screen size of 26-inch, and Sarah's computer of also a 26-inch. Whatever information you put here, it will always be used when you reference to the variable type. The second use scenario, let's say, for example, we want to get a user input and use it on multiple times inside our code. So instead of asking the user every time about the input again, we just ask it for one time and store it inside our variable, and we can use it again a couple times. So getting back to the screen size example, as you can see here, I just modified the screen size variable to be none because nothing, because in this case now, let's say we don't know what is the screen size of the user. So we're gonna ask the user to enter his screen size, and after that we're gonna collect the user information, which is the screen size, and we're gonna save it in our variable, which is the screen size, and after that we're gonna use it. So here we ask the user for his input for one time only, and we use this variable 2 times here. Imagine if we didn't use the variable, we're gonna tell him enter the screen size of John. First it give me the input, and I put the input in John print message. Then I want the screen size for Sarah. I'm gonna also need to ask again for sure, in case they have both the same screen size. So this let's run this program. Here, enter your screen size. Let's say my screen size is 15-inch, and enter. As you can see now, John's computer has an NVIDIA GPU and screen size of 15-inch. I successfully collected the data from the user and save it inside the variable. And when I want to use it, I just reference to it. Now let's talk about the variable scope. We should understand the variable scope so we can properly define our variable, because maybe sometimes you want to use a global variable, maybe sometimes you want to use a method variable, only method inside. So the general rule about the variable scope, that each variable can serve the sub block of code of those variable. So what that mean? Now we spoke about this method. We said this is a block of code. Anything you write here inside this block of code is belonging to this method. So if you define, let's take this variable and put it inside our method. So here, if you define your variable inside the block of code of the method, you're just gonna be able to use this variable inside this block of code. So here, let's say system.out.print screen size, for example. Let's run this application. Sorry, it's not gonna give anything for sure because we didn't put any variable for the any value for the variable. Now you can see that I successfully used this variable. But let's say I defined another method, print, let's say screen And let's say now I want to print the same message with the screen size. You remember I already defined the variable here, but I'm not able to use it in this method scope because we defined the variable inside the method scope, the first method scope. In order to be able to use it in both method, in the main method and in the print screen method, it has to be defined outside the method. So if we take it and put it on the above scope, now let's use the access modifier. As I say, we're going to speak about access modifier in next videos. As you can see now, I can use the screen size and two different methods together. So that's the scope. So why, maybe you're asking yourself now, why I need to put, I need to define a variable inside a method where I can just put it in the global domain here or the above block of code and use it in all the methods. Okay, there is a case scenario, there's use scenario where you want to, for example, define a variable which only gonna serve this method. Let's say you have some business logic here, some logic to execute, and this logic will use the screen size. Only this method will gonna use the screen size. So it's not helpful or it's not gonna be professional to put a global, let's use the word global, to put global variables where this variable is gonna be used only inside this method. So if this variable gonna serve only this method, it's wiser for sure to just define it inside this method. So this is the first scenario. The second scenario, let's say that you want to you have two identical, not 100% identical method, but two methods which do the same logic, almost the same logic, and you want to use the same variable name. If you, as we say, if you define it on a global aspect, you only can use the name once because each variable has to be unique. So if you, for example, want to define screen size one more time, you can see here that you get a compilation error. So now if you just define the variable inside the method scope or inside the block of code scope, as we can say here, you can define the variable one more time with the same name, because this method will not gonna see what inside of this method, and this method will not gonna see inside of this one. So let's talk about some use case scenario also for the variable. So let's say that you have a screen size which will never be changed. So you have to set it one time inside your program, and one time only, and you don't want any method inside your code to be able to change this screen size. So here you define what's called a constant variable. It's the same like a normal variable, but its value can never be changed inside your code. So let's use the word final to define the constant, then the string, which is the variable type, and after that, let's say the screen size is 25. And as you can see here, I used all the capital letters. It's the naming convention. When you're defining a constant, it's better to use all caps. So inside your code, you know that this is constant. So what is mean by constant? As you can see in previous example, we were able to change the screen size inside the method. So for example, if I want here to, let's put the screen size. So for example, if here I want to change the screen size to 24, I was able to do that in the previous, but now because I'm using the final word, that means I don't want any method to be able to change the variable value. So as you can see here, I'm getting compilation error and the message of cannot assign a value to a final variable. So this way I protect this variable from being edited inside the methods. Now let's talk about the variables qualities. What I mean by that is when you use variables, how to look professional, how to make your code first look professional, what is the best practice to define and use the variables, what is a general rule that outside there is like a general rule. As you can see, there's a standards, always there's a standards. What is the standards that you should follow so you get a clean usage of the variables? So first, let's talk about the allowed characters in the variable name. So when you want to name your variable, there's a set of allowed characters in Java. You have to be careful which to use. In general, all the letters, caps or small letters are allowed, underscore are allowed, numbers are allowed, but it's not allowed to be the first letter or the first input inside your variable name. So let's do some example. I'm gonna use string variable type. Let's say letters, normal letters, as you can see, screen size. Here we use small and capital. We can use numbers, for example, screen 5 size. But if you put the number on the first of the naming, you're gonna get error because this is not allowed. Let's remove the number here. Let me get some value so we can see the errors. Screen size 25, for example. Yes, as we can see, if we put a number on the start of the variable name, you will get an error. But if you use it in second or in anywhere else, it doesn't matter, it works. You can use underscore for naming, although to mention there's, as we said, the standards. In Java, we use what we call the camel case for naming the variable. What is the camel case? It's simple that the first word has a small, the first letter of the first word has a small letter. Then all the words, let's say if the variable name has 2 words, like this one, screen size, the first letter of the second word will be capital, and third and fourth also capital, and etc. If you have like a naming of with 4 or 5 words, it's only the first word will be small. So this is the camel case, and it's used in Java, and it's best to use it in Java. Another one is the underscore, but it's not normally used in Java. So if you want to look professional, if you want to follow the standards, it's best to use the camel case in naming. Also, the allowed letters is $, for example. You can use $, in Java, but also, as I said, as a standard, it's not generally used here. I'm now talking about, especially about Java. There's some languages which underscore is better than camel case. But in general, let's say all the new age, or the camel case is widely used more than the underscore case. Okay, so let's get back to the camel case. To speak more also about the allowed characters and forbidden characters, you can't use, for example, a slash or backslash or quote or single quote. You can't use it inside your variable name because it's already reserved for something else inside your code. And also, like all the special characters like this one, obviously you can't use it in here. You can't use, for example, the star, because the star is observed for the multiply in the language. So you just there's a long list of disallowed characters inside the variable name. But as I said, in general, all letters, small and capital, all numbers, but the number shouldn't be the first one inside, the first letter inside your variable name. As we spoke about the quality, we spoke about the descriptive name or the variable name. Always use a descriptive name for your variable. It's not a good idea, never a good idea to use, for example, a variable name string x. Like, first, when you're writing your code, you're not gonna always remember that x, that means the screen size. And this is the first thing. Let's say now you finished your project and you use this naming as x. After 5 months, for example, if you want to get back to your project and open it and you read the code, you're not going to be able like what this x do. So as a best to look professional and also for your code to be more readable now and in the future, and in the case, for example, some other programmer wants to work on your code, you always have to use descriptive name. So screen size here, it's like obvious, the screen size, but x, what is x? You have to put that in mind. We speak as well about the constant, as we said, the constant of the variable value will never change, so it's a constant. Also, the naming convention of the constant is to be all caps, so all capital letters. We put final string screen size equal 25, for example. Yes, as we can say. So as you can see here, it's all caps. This how you tell not how you tell the code. This is now when you see a variable which is all caps inside your code, you know this is a constant. You can't change or modify the value of it. You only can use this variable. So this is also the best case for naming convention of constant variables. And also worth to mention the general rule. If there is a guideline for naming the variable from the company, let's say now you're working with the new company, you're getting in a project, you read the documentation of the project, and you see that this company is using, for example, the underscore naming for the variable, although we're using the Java, but they like to use the underscore naming, in this case screen size. You have to follow the company guideline. If there is no company guideline, you will follow the language standards. This is also worth to mention. And as we said about global variables and method variables, don't always use the method variables when this variable is only gonna serve inside this method. It's not a good idea to define a global variable to be used only one time inside one method. This is gonna be a waste of resource. It's also gonna be your code will not gonna be like fit properly. It's not gonna be good to do this. And the last and most important, let's say, rule of variable qualities is always use or always choose the best variable type to serve the data. So how to describe that? Let's say now in Java there's two variable types to hold a double numbers. There's the float and there's a double. So now they both can just save a double, but you have to understand that the float precision is only 7 doubles numbers. So it's, let's say, if the float can hold only 7 numbers after the dot, the double precision can hold up to 15 number after the dot. So you have to know like what is the input's gonna be, and in order to choose the best variable type. Why you choose the best variable type? Because the difference sometimes between a variable type and the other is in resource, in size, in bytes, and also as a professional, you always have to use a good, which is a best variable type to serve your purpose. If you like our videos, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and turn on the notifications so you can see all the new videos.